Derived from Latin, the word Aborigine literally means original inhabitants. Although it is still speculation as to whether the arrival of the Aborigines was intentional or by accident, they arrived nearly 30,000 years before Cook's discovery. Having originally come from Papua New Guinea, isolated from further influences, the Aborigines soon called Australia home and was able to develop a unique culture, language and lifestyle. However, the arrival of Captain James Cook in 1770 signalled the end of their ancient way of life. In 1788, 12 boats brought with it the British invasion. Now seen as invaders, the Indigenous Australians were forced further inland. Uneducated and naive, the European settlers considered the Aborigines akin to the kangaroos, dingoes and emus. It wasn't long before the Western contamination started to cause major problems. The Aborigines continued to suffer death, massacre, disease, such as smallpox and starvation. It was widely believed that the Indigenous Australians would die out. After the first few years of the British invasion, there were only a handful of Aborigines left. Under the misconception that the Indigenous Australians were in need of their leadership, the Westerners believed the white lifestyle was a better and more culturally advanced option for the Aborigines. Thus, they forcibly removed and segregated many Aborigines onto reserves and missions, more often than not forcibly educating, domesticating, and training them so as to integrate them into the white culture. Unfortunately, changes in policies and movements towards reconciliation are no match for the disposition and detrimental effects of past policies upon the Indigenous people. Today, there are over 400,000 people who identify themselves as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, but despite equal rights, many still view them as second-class citizens. The modern Indigenous population is beset with alcohol and drug abuse, suicide and domestic violence. The education and health outcomes have also proven to be far below that of other Australians. Only 70% of the Indigenous population have completed 7th grade, whilst only 40% have graduated from high school. Studies have also shown that Indigenous Australians are 3 times more likely to become alcoholics than their non-Indigenous counterparts. Dating back over 60,000 years, the Aboriginal culture is one of the oldest surviving cultures in the world. In order to survive, Indigenous children learned to hunt at an early age, mastering the spearfishing technique and learning to effectively use the boomerang. As it is most commonly called, the dreaming is the Indigenous version of a Christian's creation or a scientist's evolution. They believe not only that the land gave life, but that the land is life. The earth is an ancient gift to them, and the dreaming guides them to understand and look after this blessing. It is by the law of the dreaming that they learned how to hunt, how to understand the animals, plants and weather. To the Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders, nature is their food, medicine, stories, dance, music, as well as the place of worship and ceremony. To this day, they believe that they are tied to the land through their spiritual links and ancestors, rather than their ownership of the land. To the Indigenous Australian, music, art and dance is more than just entertainment. Their music and dance is a portal of connection to their land and ancestral spirits. It is also through their music, art and dance that they pass on their stories, history and laws. Initially, the Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders moved around in large tribes consisting of up to 1,000 members. Each tribe would have an allocated area of land through which they moved around freely, in groups of up to 20 and 30 people. The Indigenous Australians were mostly a peaceful people and did not fight. They knew the land and they knew the boundaries. Any fights that erupted were small scale and based on family disputes or insults. Much the same today, it is not uncommon for what to us is extended family to live together. In their culture, family is family. Aunties are mothers, uncles are fathers, and cousins are siblings. They share family duties and bring their children up together. Aborigines were forced to leave their land and move further inland. This meant less water, unfertile ground, and an unknown landscape which put the population at risk. On top of this, the Westerners had brought with them many foreign diseases and illnesses, which were causing numerous Aboriginal deaths. Still today, many Indigenous Australians struggle to trust Western authorities, fearing that their lives will be put at risk. To the present day, racism and discrimination is a daily experience for many Aborigines. Although there are many legal regulations to ensure fair treatment, it wasn't always this way. Back in 1901, the government did everything in their power to ensure that Aborigines had no rights. In fact, it was as recent as 1984 that the last Aboriginal child was taken under the Stolen Generation Act. Finally, in 1905, the Aboriginal Act was made. However, we are still far from being an anti-racist and anti-discriminatory nation. Recent statistics have proven that Indigenous Australians are 15 times more likely to go to jail than non-Indigenous Australians in the same position. It is no wonder that there is still so little trust between Westerners and Indigenous Australians. Although much has changed, we cannot deny that there are many things that have not changed. The issue of alcoholism among Indigenous Australians is one that comes to mind. We often forget that we are the cause. We brought the alcohol, we introduced them to it, and we encouraged their addiction. Bred to be dependent on alcohol, but by law unable to buy alcohol, the Aborigines within the reserves were compliant, anticipating their alcoholic reward. As was mentioned before, storytelling, documenting history, and passing on life experiences plays a massive part in Indigenous culture. Considering this, we must be aware that the likelihood of vicarious and intergenerational trauma is very high. Thus, it is to be expected that even the younger Indigenous generations have the same weariness towards Westerners as those before them. This means that they are no more liable to approach Western services than their parents were, meaning we have to make the effort.